Oh, you're again together. Right. Hi.
Yeah. Hi, Vladimir.
Hi.
You see us and hear us?
Yes, I see you.
And you see, okay, great. All right. We managed today successfully again, so that's fine.
That's already biggest achievement. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a big achievement today.
Right. Okay, great. I sent you the file for the Vedic vision, which I had in mind for you to read. And everything what we were talking there with references and so on. Mm, let me look into this, our presentation. I will project 1 second.
I see so much Shakti in you. No? The Shakti space in you. You're really brothers and sisters.
How to project it? Wait a minute. Too many things.
Like that,
Yeah, I'm projecting. 1 second.
Okay, great.
Right. So we went with you through, yeah, let's start with mantra. Short. Om Ya Devi Sarvabhuteshu Matrirupena Sanstita Ya Devi Sarvabhuteshu Shaktirupena Sanstita Ya Devi Sarvabhuteshu Shantirupena Sanstita Namastasyai 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 Namo Namaha Om Namo Namaha Shri Mirambekayai Om Namo Bhagavate Shri Aravindaya Om Namo Namaha Shri Mirambekayai Shri Aravinda Sharanam Mama. Okay, we went through the vision of the Veda from the beginning. It's a psychological vision, as self was alone and he wanted to be another, Sadvitiya Maishat. He wanted the second. And there was a reason for it. As Mother says, he wanted to experience himself in unity, to have the additional ananda of uniting through otherness of self with himself. So we went through all these arguments of Sri Aurobindo, that it was done for the delight. Mother says that it was done to see himself in detail. That's why manifestation is so important, because the infinite is being detailed, brought into detailed manifestation. So every bit and piece of his infinite manifestation can have its own focus, its own valid point in time and space. So time and space is kind of spelling out all the infinite varieties of this eternal being, which exists. What is interesting, in the physical manifestation, you can see that nothing repeats itself. It's actually a proof of his infinite being. You don't have the same fingerprints in the world. You don't have the same, pebbles on the shore. You will never find the same leaves in the forest. They will be similar, but they will never be the same. So that means there is an infinite variety of his infinite being in this manifestation. quite a unique proof of his infinity. Well, about cloning, we do not know. Maybe it won't be the same. It is not the same. There are also new movies, scientific fiction movies, that clowning is also not the same. The clowns are different. Yeah.
There's a movie that's called Eon Flush. It talks about cloning.
Yes, and this cloning is very, very that they are not the same. They have their own character, and it is quite clear why. Because they are born in different time and in different space. They occupy different space. How can they be the same?
Yeah.
It's simply not possible.
And
So,
also
yeah?
Yeah, and also the DNA is not also the whole being. It's only the physical imprint anyway. It's not the whole being.
Correct. So imprint, if you produce the same cups in the pottery, it won't be the same. You know? Even if you try to make it one-to-one, even a machine goes and works and makes the same car, it will never be the same. Because the time is changing, the position of the planet, constantly. Planet is moving around itself, around the sun around the galaxy is always expanding. We are always in a new space and in a new time. How can you produce the same thing? You can't. So there will be an infinite variety. So how could he become many? And that was the question. So he had to forget himself. That's what we went through. He withdrew his infinite consciousness from his infinite power and let power be as if it was not him. Of course, it was him, but not remembering himself.
Can I tell you one thing? It's like me is like you use the term him, but actually it's like
we can put her.
Maybe more use it, you know, like the fact.
I agree, totally agree, immediately. It's just a habit of language.
Because that way, you know, the delight, the need for the delight was in expressing the two opposites kind of his being.
Yeah, it's a grammatical hymn. You can, if you would study with me Sanskrit, you would see that this preference for he as grammatical, it's just grammatical. It's no more valuable, meaningful he. Though Mother speaks of him also, and Sri Aurobindo speaks of him, it's a habit, you know, to speak of him as Purusha in a masculine gender. It's a habit. We can change it. I don't mind speaking of it. Yeah? But it, in the Indian tradition, we will see it immediately. It speaks of the spirit. Spirit is it. And he is a person. So to say, we don't have better language for. And for the lack of better language, we can't call him the person it. Even in English, it is a little bit strange.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's why I say him. It's him. It makes it more alive, you know. I can say it's her, the mother. It would be more appropriate. Sri Aurobindo says about this.
Wouldn't solve the matter anyway, even if you said her.
Right. And Sri Aurobindo says that the sacrifice of Purusha was known in the Veda as Holocaust of the Divine Mother. So it is the same spiritual being, yeah? Which we call Mother or Purusha in different traditions. So, yeah, so he withdrew his supreme knowledge from his supreme power, and he or she became unaware. Better he, because she will be doing this work again. You see, it's already occupied for the functionality. So she doing the work of this projection and withdrawal and redemption. It is she who is doing the work, and he is lost. You remember the canto of secret knowledge? from the first book. It is he and she. Yes,
Yeah.
this world, this vast world is only he and she. That's how he speaks. And this was the knot which ties together the stars. Yeah? This vast world is only he and she. So, yeah, the first four emanations which fell into their opposites. What is interesting here, which I was not mentioning, but maybe I will send you later the article which I wrote, a long article on Savitri, symbolism of Savitri, because you see these four fallen emanations. Mother was all her life trying to convert these fallen emanations, these asuras, and she said she converted the consciousness in light, which turned into darkness, and bliss, which turned into suffering. She said about this in Agenda that she converted these two fallen emanations, but she never could convert these other two ones, falsehood and death. And that was her major preoccupation with. And she dealt with vibhutis of the same, you know. Her husband was the vibhuti of falsehood. Yeah?
Yes, yes, yes.
And the Max Theon was the vibhuti of death. So
Yes.
she knew them personally. She had a personal contact with them, but she never could really fulfill or finish her work. The biggest kind of fight was in the Second World War with the falsehood, the Asura of falsehood, who called himself the Lord of Nations. What is interesting here in this vision, that there is a hierarchy of fall. First, consciousness in light falls. Yeah? So light turns into darkness and dragging the bliss into suffering. So bliss becomes suffering because of darkness, because of unawareness of where or to whom you belong. That consciousness in light was giving awareness. Now awareness is not there. What will be left for the bliss? Only to turn into suffering. So suffering is nothing but bliss without awareness of the Supreme. The darkness is nothing but light, which forgot the Supreme, you know. So the same with falsehood. Falsehood is truth without a touch or connection with the light of the Supreme. It does the same, but in the darkness. And because of that darkness, it creates falsehood, though it looks for the truth. Did you notice that all the liars, they lie because they speak about what they speak as truth? They all pretend to be true. They don't pretend to be false. Nobody wants to be untrue. Nobody says, I am untrue. So, you see, I am truthful because I am untrue. No. Everybody pretends to be true. And that is the pretending. It means we are in the darkness. And death itself is life, perpetual life. Yeah? Which must be interrupted by the darkness. So the darkness is not allowing us to see that uninterrupted movement of life. And that's why we call it death. So after these four fallen emanations, and these are actually nothing but Chit, Tapas, Ananda, Vijnana, and Sat. So we have Sat, Chit, Tapas, Ananda. These are transcendental beings. When we come to the Vedic studies, we will see these as Varuna, Mitra, Aryaman, Bhaga, and triple supermind, Damsha, the Daksha, Amsha, and Surya. So these seven Adityas, or seven sons of Aditi, the Divine Mother, or seven faculties of her being. So seven because truth has three of them. And consciousness and force also is there, two of them. So that's why 7. Otherwise, there are 4 as here in this story. So once that all turned into darkness, it could not sustain itself because it was losing itself, falling into oblivion, dying, disappearing. And to sustain it, to make it stay and work and to come back to its self-awareness, there was a second creation. The emanations of the second creation were created by the mother. And so in the Veda it is mentioned as he entered himself by himself. And this creation became steady. He entered with his full awareness into something which was not aware of the divine. And that's what we are. We are this double being. We have in ourselves something which is totally aware of the divine, and then all the grades till that surface of consciousness where we are not aware of ourselves anymore. So all the grades of awareness are within us as within the world. We are this microcosm of all possible layers, levels of consciousness. Yes. This we went through. So in the Veda it is the divine will, Agni, which is called immortal among mortals, the first avatar, who laid down into the darkness, into the deepest, the bottom of things. This is him, so to say, first avatar, because of who everything evolves. So we came to this evolution. So Sri Aurobindo defines it very simple, in a simple way. A soul of the divine is here slowly awaking out of its involution and concealment in the material inconscious. So this involution, plunge, or this holocaust of the Divine Mother, or sacrifice of the Purusha, when the divine gave itself to this creation to bring it back to its supreme awareness. So this awaking out of involution is our evolution. And this is very beautiful passage that he sleeps in atom and the burning star, he sleeps in man and god and beast and stone because he's there. The inconscient does its work. It works because he is there. The world forgets to die. It had to die. It was not him. It had to fall into oblivion, but it didn't because he's there within. And so everything evolves out of the darkness into the light. It's a supreme explanation by Sri Aurobindo and the Mother. You will not find anywhere this explanation after the Veda. Only in the Veda, only in the Rig Veda. After that, neither Upanishads, nor Gita, nobody speaks on it, no Tantra, no one. It becomes a mystery. But for the first time, Sri Aurobindo and the Mother kind of give us an explanation, and then Veda can be understood. So this terrestrial evolutionary workings, we also spoke about this, has double process. That is physical evolution with birth as its machinery through genome, as it were. For each evolved form of body housing its own evolved power of consciousness is maintained and kept in heredity, in continuity by heredity. I'm not sure, yeah, I'm recording. Sometimes I forget to press the button and then I regret. There is at the same time an invisible process of soul evolution with rebirth into ascending grades of form and consciousness as its machine. So we have a double process. One is the physicality is evolving, all the instruments of our mind, vital and body. Through genome, we are producing children, children are producing children, so it goes uninterrupted. And from another side, we are constantly being reborn here. We are coming, plunging, evolving, developing, and coming out and again. So, in a way, we are building our body in time, as it were. So, I am now having contributed to this world with my development, whatever it is, learned from it for myself, will leave this body, and then I will come to the results which my participation in this time determine the development in the future. I'm working for the future. We are all working for our future body. That's why it's so important to be more and more conscious rather than unconscious, which is the case in the world. Yes. And here we looked into, here we stopped. I said it was the philosophical explanation by Sri Aurobindo. Brahman says it is the same story but from the philosophical language. Brahman says Sri Aurobindo has projected in itself this luminous shadow of itself and has in the act begun to envisage itself and consider its essentialities in the light of attributes. He who is existence, consciousness, bliss envisages himself as existent, conscious, blissful. From that moment, phenomenal manifestation becomes inevitable. The unqualified chooses to regard himself as qualified, having qualities. The one becomes the many. It's another language for the same what we described as two creations. Two creations is a mythical language. This is more philosophical and more of mental structure. What is interesting here that the existence becomes existent, consciousness becomes conscient, and bliss becomes blissful. So there is some self. In this spirit, there is the formation of the self. So if spirit is aware of itself, that is what it is. Atman is the awareness, self-awareness of the spirit. So here we have, in the Indian tradition, we have Brahman, Sat, Chit, Ananda, Vijnana, Manas, Prana, and Annam on all the levels. So Satchitananda is the higher hemisphere, Paraprakriti, higher nature, transcendental being, consciousness and bliss. And through Vijnana, supermind, it connects us to the lower hemisphere, Manas, Prana, and Annam. Annam as matter is nothing but projection of existence. So matter, material manifestation, is the bottom of that existence, so to say, direct projection through supermind in time and space. Now you can see that these are levels of being. But if we come to Atman, self, then on the level of Sat, it will be Sat Purusha, the divine self, Chaitanya Purusha, the all-conscious soul, Anandamaya Purusha, all-blissful soul, Vijnanamaya Purusha, the great soul, Manomaya Purusha, mental being, Pranamaya Purusha, vital being, and Annamaya Purusha, physical being. Now, I am the physical being. This is the physical being, but I'm made out of matter, and I am connected to all the matter around me. So the matter is Brahman, but the physical being is Atman, the poise of consciousness, the focus, the focal point of consciousness creates this physical being. The same with Pranamaya Purusha. There is a vital realm, but the poise of that, the focal point, creates this Pranamaya Purusha because there is this self behind. The same with Manomaya Purusha and Vijnanamaya Purusha and up to Sat Purusha. So all these are the focal points of viewing oneself on that particular level of being and consciousness. Quite interesting. So it's like we have horizontal spirit and vertical, which is crossing the self, which can view itself from that particular point of view. From any point of view, it can view itself on every level of consciousness and being. So this is the difference between different terms which we have to understand before we come to Vedas. The difference between Brahman and Atman. They speak that they are not different, and at the same time they are. They are not different because Sat Purusha is Sat, but it is viewing itself as self from that point of view. What is interesting here, the word Purusha. What is the difference between Atman and Purusha then? Purusha is the person which was created for the sake of manifestation. Purusha has faculties of consciousness. He has sight, hearing, speaking, thinking, feeling, and being in the body. He has all the faculties of consciousness, which represent his consciousness. Purusha is consciousness. Atman is being. Atman is the self, which is. Purusha is how consciousness functions within that being. Between them, there is considerable difference. Sri Aurobindo says there are only two realities, the self and the Purusha and the self and the Lord. He calls Purusha the Lord. Yeah, because he is the one who has consciousness, and the self has the being. Of course, between consciousness and being on that level, there is no difference for us, but there is a difference in approach. Either you approach the being or you approach the consciousness which perceives the being. So Purusha is that consciousness which perceives being. Yeah? And that creates self, Atman, out of that infinite existence, undifferentiated existence. It is consciousness which makes it self. So Purusha is essential in that way. We can talk about this more when we come to the texts. You will see the difference. So here we are. It's a very interesting section for our studies. I just had to overview. Maybe overview took a little longer than necessary, but it was necessary to touch upon again why those two manifestations, two creations are important. Because now from this point of view, we will see the psychological experience. The true being, says Sri Aurobindo, may be realized in one or both of two aspects, the self or Atman and the soul or Antaratman, psychic being, Chaitya Purusha. The difference is that one is felt as universal, the other as individual, supporting the mind, life, and body. When one first realizes the Atman, one feels it separate from all things, existing in itself and detached. Unborn self, transcendental. Jivatman is something above our head which was never born, that, witness, Purusha, who is not engaged in the work of Prakriti, who is only viewing, witnessing. When one realizes the psychic being, it is not like that. For this brings the sense of union with the divine and dependence upon it and soul consecration to the divine alone, and the power to change the nature and discover the true mental, the true vital, the true physical being in oneself. You see, it is turned towards manifestation. That one is witnessing manifestation. This one is making it possible. and it is calling for the divine, loving the divine. That one is the divine. This one is looking for the divine here in nature. Both realizations are necessary for this yoga. So one center is above the head, this Atman, Jivatman, unborn self, witness, Purusha, and other is within the heart, the psychic being. Somewhere in the letter to the disciple, Sri Aurobindo explains why these two are necessary, why he and the mother are necessary for this yoga. He says that his influence comes from over the head, over the mental and vital nature, and mother's influence comes from within the heart as a psychic presence, over the vital and physical nature. And in that sense, the spiritual can reach to the physical and influence and change it. Only through the psychic we can change our physical nature. There is no other way. Spiritual otherwise cannot touch the physical. It cannot change physical consciousness without the psychic. This is the secret of Sri Aurobindo and the Mother. I don't think anybody ever explained this in this way. That's why in Savitri we can read, when Satyavan meets Savitri, he says, but with you coming, he explains to her, when he thought of God, he lost nature. When he went into nature, he lost touch with God. But with you coming, yeah, you are the golden bridge. She can bridge between the spiritual and physical. So through her, it is possible to do. By the way, these are two very different attitudes, and both are necessary for this yoga. One views everything as the divine already. This over the head, it looks at everything as the divine. Only it lost itself, it forgot about itself, but it is essentially the divine. The other, the psychic, doesn't look that way. It looks at everything, it wants only the divine. It does not accept anything which is not yet totally the divine. It's intolerant of lower nature. It wants to change it. It wants to bring the divine and make everything the divine. So these two different attitudes are necessary for this yoga. There was a very interesting dialogue in the evening talks with Sri Aurobindo, where somebody, I'm sure you know about this, but maybe it's good to, in this context, to view it again. Somebody mentioned that some sannyasi came to Ramakrishna Math, to Ramakrishna's ashram, with a prostitute, sannyasi and prostitute, yeah, together. So they lived together. And Ramakrishna was very furious. He said, "Get out from my ashram," and so on and so forth. And he said, "Why you're so kind of disturbed? I am Brahman, you are Brahman, she is also Brahman. Why do you want us to leave? We are all only Brahman, one being." And Ramakrishna said, "I spit on your Vedanta." Spit this way. So they asked Sri Aurobindo to comment on it. And you know, what is interesting, that what he said essentially was this difference, that from the spiritual point of view, yes, Brahman, the sannyasin is totally right. Everything is Brahman. Can't be different. Yeah, everything is one being. But from the psychic point of view, it is not like that. Yeah? Ramakrishna wanted everything to be the divine. He didn't want to accept everything as already the divine. So these two attitudes are essential for our progress. Both are necessary. It's kind of interesting. They are contradictory to the mind, but they are absolutely essential for the psychological discipline. So to sum up, we could see that the first creation was the fall of the spirit, which laid out the field for its future manifestation, as it were, the body. All the levels of consciousness were unfolded gradually, creating all the worlds in the involutionary order, from light to darkness, from superconscient to the inconscient, from spirit to matter. Second creation was this intrusion. I chose this picture because this yellow in the blue dark, it's exactly the meaning of the second creation, was the plunge of the supreme into the darkness of the material inconscience, bringing the aspect of the self into existence in terms of individual growth and realization. From this point, matter becomes animated and the evolution takes place. It goes on till the psychic being is fully individualized and formed, and the instruments of its expression, body, life, and mind, are fully developed to embody the spirit. So the second creation causes this involution. Evolution. So evolution starts with this second involution or plunge of the spirit, the psychic, evolves gradually, changing the world. And the third, so we have the contradiction between our soul and nature, between our inner self and our surface consciousness. So to remove that contradiction, to reconcile between them, the third creation is coming up, the supramental descent, which reconciles between nature with the soul, enthrones the psychic being as the Lord of creation, and gives it direct access to the higher realms of being and consciousness. So the transcendental Satchitananda can manifest in this world, establishing the law of the spirit in the whole nature. Now I'm coming to Life Divine, and that is important to see what Sri Aurobindo says, his quotations. There are, says Sri Aurobindo, different statuses of the divine consciousness, individual, universal, and transcendental. There are also different statuses of transformation. First is the psychic transformation, in which all is in contact with the divine through the individual psychic consciousness. Next is the spiritual transformation, in which all is merged in the divine, in the cosmic consciousness. That means the focal point of the psychic already started to grow and change the subconscious being, which is the cosmic consciousness. The third is the supramental transformation, in which all becomes supramentalized in the divine Gnostic consciousness. So, three quotes from three transformations will explain quite a bit. The psychic being is a flame born out of the divine, and luminous inhabitant of the ignorance grows in it till it is able to turn it towards the knowledge. This is the mission of psychic being, to turn everything towards the knowledge. So that's why it cannot tolerate ignorance. It is a deputy of the unborn self, or Atman, in the forms of nature, the individual soul, supporting mind, life, and body, standing behind them, watching and profiting by their development and experience. It's not only helping them to change, it also learns from them how to be, how to deal with them. It grows itself. It evolves. It's not the finished product. Mother speaks about psychic presence rather than psychic being. Psychic presence is everywhere in nature, but the being is very rare. The being, the individualized form of psychic, is a very rare event. We don't have beings yet. We have still kind of, presence. To become individual in psychic sense is to become individual supreme. If it can come forward into the front and govern overtly and entirely this outer nature of mind, life, and body, then these can be cast into soul images of what is true, right, and beautiful. And in the end, the whole nature can be turned towards the real aim of life, the supreme victory, the ascent into spiritual existence. So coming psychic to the front is the major part of our yoga. The spiritual transformation. The psychic being, notice I'm underlining, that spiritual transformation is nothing but the continuation of psychic being's journey. Once it is formed and is in front, it has more to achieve. So the psychic being can, by spiritual influx, enlarge itself and embrace the whole world in an intimate communion or oneness. Or it may become aware of its eternal companion and elect to live forever in his presence, in an imperishable union and oneness as the eternal lover with the eternal beloved, which of all spiritual experiences is the most intense in beauty and rapture. This is Mirabai's or Kabir's, this kind of singing to the Lord, seeing him in every form, in every shape in this world. It is the experience which Sri Aurobindo had in Alipur jail when he saw the presence of Narayana in the bars of his cell, in the shade which the tree was giving him outside. So he saw him everywhere, in every being, in every form. This is the intense in beauty and rapture experience of the dynamic Brahman, as he calls it. All these are great and splendid achievements of our spiritual self-finding, but they are not necessarily the last end and entire consummation. More is possible. This is Sri Aurobindo. Always more is possible, if more can be possible. So, supramental transformation. The psychic transformation after rising into spiritual change, again psychic, notice, has then to be completed, integralized, exceeded, and uplifted by supramental transformation. In supermind is the integrating light, the consummating force, the wide entry into the supreme Ananda. The psychic being, uplifted by that light and force, can unite itself with the original delight of existence from which it came, overcoming the dualities of pain and pleasure, delivering from all fear and shrinking the mind, life, and body. It can recast the contacts of existence in the world into terms of the divine Ananda. So everything becomes the supreme Ananda. Every touch, every thought, every feeling, every movement, every contact in the world. This is the aim of this manifestation. Now here you can clearly see those Vedic stages. They are for us important because we will see them in the texts. That's why the younger brothers and older brothers, elder brothers of gods are asuras. They are stronger, they are first. They came first, those fallen emanations. And we are the product of both. Yeah? We have in us this unconscious being, those asuras in us, so to say, building our physical, vital, and mental nature, and the divine presence within, which is changing them. Yeah? So we are the product of two creations. And that creates the whole problem for us, of course. We are in a constant dialogue. Did you notice? The whole day is only this dialogue between the two, which path to take, what attitude to take, either divine or this survival attitude and selfishness. I have to survive. I have to preserve myself. I have to take care of this being, this temporarily being, or I should go ahead with this light within. And so this constant dialogue, constant fight between the two. Quite interesting. Okay, I stop here. If you have some questions, that was first presentation in 2 sessions. We will go next time into another one, the Vedic paradigm, how the Vedas deal with this issue in terms of gods, what they are doing, what their functions, and so on and so forth. Yes?
I have no questions. I just need to reread it and listen again. So at the moment, I have had trouble to access the video. You sent me the link.
You have a problem to access there?
The recording of last week. When you sent me the link, I go into the link. I come to your YouTube page, and then I see many of your lectures, and many are in Russian. Trying to figure out this.
Oh, yeah. Well, that is for other students, yes. But you should be able to access.
I had no problem with the one you sent. I looked at it on my phone and I could open it. I saw exactly what we did last time.
Yeah. Okay, I will do 2 things. I will put also on the Google Drive, you can download if you want. But downloading is much more difficult than watching on YouTube. I will check again. Maybe I should put another email for you. Do you have, should be the same email. I put all the emails.
It's all gray. ALL gray.
Okay. Maybe I made it wrong. I will check. Yeah, I will check. And this also will go the same way, so you can revisit it if you need. I'm not opening for others because it's our group kind of. So it will be only private for us.
That's why I was surprised that I went into the general collection of your.
Oh, this is allowed. Yeah, if my students do not mind, and some of them don't mind, Russians especially, they want it for others. So then I opened it. I don't mind. I don't care. It's only because of students I do this. I have many private and many unlisted. You didn't see many which are.
I was not able to come to the private session.
I will check. I will let you know that you will be able. Yeah, I will make it. Yeah, okay.
And I will be in France for 2 weeks.
France.
So I will check in on it. Yes, I'm going to visit my children, and I will check in on Sunday at 1 p.m.
Aha.
Is that correct?
Yeah, there must be. I will tell you what is the time here. Wait a minute. I will stop.